Life looked pretty rosy, but yet in the inside, I was actually dying of misalignment. Intuitively, instinctively, there was just something in me that was like, this isn't okay anymore.
If you could go back in time and give your 21-year-old self any piece of advice, what would that be?
This is such a great question.
Welcome back to Wildly Empowered Women. I am so stoked to have one of my favorite women on the planet on the podcast today, Rosie Lockhart.
What am I here for? What's the vision? Is this serving the vision or is this just a bloody distraction?
Rosie previously worked multiple jobs. She's a business owner. She's a multi-passionate.
I had to let go of absolutely everything that got in the way.
Welcome back to Wildly Empowered Women. I am so stoked to have one of my favorite women on the planet on the podcast today. Very, very privileged. And I know that this discussion and this conversation is going to be incredibly valuable for you to be a fly on the wall and listen to, because this guest is a very close friend of mine and we always have the most powerful, juicy, empowering conversations. So my absolute pleasure to welcome Rosie Lockhart onto the podcast. Rosie previously worked multiple jobs. She's a business owner. She's a multi-passionate. She's an actor, interior designer, a mani-gen, and she's gone from hustle central to really living in abundance and alignment and so much joy building her time leveraged six-figure business. And it's not often that you hear those two words in the same sentence, joy and six-figure business, right? And that is really something that I admire so much in Rosie. She's someone that I have seen just transform so much in the last couple of years of her doing this business, being in the online space and really finding her truth and what her voice is. And when Rosie and I were speaking about this podcast, I said to her, like, something that I just deeply admire so much in her is that she has found her voice and her truth and she actually speaks it. And that's a journey that so many people are on. And it's a really it's quite a loaded topic, right? Like finding your truth, like who the F are you? What the F is your truth? You know, like what is that for you? So that's the topic we're going to talk on today. And any beautiful tangents that we go on as well, that will be perfect as well. But I wanted to start with just handing it over to you, Rosie, on anything that you wanted to share in terms of your background and who you are, and particularly where you were before you sort of went on this journey of finding and unleashing your voice.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jess. It is such an honor to be here. And, you know, this podcast has been a long time coming. You asked me to be a guest on your podcast literally when you launched it. And I think you asked me to be one of your first guests. And I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to actually say what needs to be said. And I feel like this is such a poignant question that so many of us actually come to when we're faced with a point of growth or expansion, or actually being able to articulate who we are and where we're at and what we're about. So it's an absolute honor to be here. And I'm really just looking forward to the conversation and whatever comes out. And I hope that it's of value to your beautiful listeners. A little bit about me. I am a born and bred country gal from regional New South Wales. However, I've spent the last decade or so in Melbourne as a living, working, breathing, creative entrepreneur. As you mentioned, I'm an actor. I pivoted left, right, and center, working for other people, running their businesses, and also developed a skill set to work as an interior designer and have my own little design consultancy business as well. And things really shifted for me actually just before March of 2020, when the whole world sort of started to shift and change. And I was actually at this point in my life where I felt like I was juggling so much, and on the outside, everything looked pretty darn juicy. I had a beautiful man, had the property, I had, the investment property, I had a beautiful pussycat, life looked pretty rosy. But yet in the inside, I was actually dying of misalignment. This is my cat Luna, who's just come to join us. Welcome.
Hey, Looney.
Misalignment and really lacking purpose. And, now kind of 3 years on, I see that lacking in purpose actually really led to a lot of unhappiness because I didn't have any sense of like real worth or meaning or impact in the world. Like it was literally just my own survival inside my own little bubble. And it didn't have any kind of, ripple effect or positive effect on a lot of other people. And I knew that there was so much inside of me that needed to be unleashed and shared, but I had no idea how to access it. And being a creative, like all through my 20s, I was always working. Like if you're a creative and you're working contract to contract, you're kind of in this survival state all of the time. Mm-hmm. And it's an incredibly unique way to live. In a way, you're kind of already on the edge of society because you don't have a normal job with a salary and annual leave and benefits and all of the things. You're kind of choosing your art and your expression over everything else. Yet I got to the point where I'd been so in the hustle of the do of creative work that I actually had lost myself. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was a stand for. I didn't know how to speak my truth and not be so petrified of the ramifications. Would I lose my agent? Would I not get that job? Would I be pigeonholed as this when really I'm that? All of these things, when you actually kind of give your power away and you hand it over to somebody else to decide for you what is right for you. And intuitively, instinctively, there was just something in me that was like, this isn't okay anymore. And so we connected online. And, I'd actually, been aware of you and your journey for over a year due to some personal connections, some personal mutual connections. And when we connected personally, I really resonated with what your storytelling and the things that you shared, even though our lives are actually really different in terms of you're a young mother, you lived in Sydney, I was in Melbourne, but just at the heart of it and the core of, I guess, your womanness and your desire to actually be successful and independent, whilst also in a loving and supportive relationship with a man, was really inspiring for me. And it just spoke to me on like a cellular level. And so I got curious and I leaned in. And as somebody who's never done really any personal development, like this is the thing, I just didn't have time. Like it wasn't a priority because I was always working and I was always working to optimize my time so that I could earn the most amount of money so that I could actually then afford to take big chunks of time out of my life in order to be in creative projects that didn't necessarily pay me, what I deserved to be paid, but that's just not on the table in the arts. So that was my life. That was normal for me. It was almost like being a student for like 15 years, like living on like a student's wage or budget for like 15 years. And I just got to the point where I was like, enough's enough. Like there's got to be a better way. And I really came into this space wanting to find my voice. Like that was the key driver. At the time, it wasn't the money. It wasn't because my business was actually starting to boom and I had multiple sources of income, which I was sort of turning down on as my other business was kind of blossoming. And then lockdowns hit and everything just shifted. And I was so grateful that I had sort of said yes to going on this journey of self-discovery and seeing what else was available to me. And at the time, it kind of made no sense. People around me were like, I was aware energetically of what people would think around me. So I kept my cards very close to my chest. It was a very personal journey. And I literally like locked myself in my spare room / office at the time. And I just got to work. I did like courses, masterclasses, worked with coaches. And it just kind of opened up my world to like, wow, like I've been asleep this whole time. And there's so much about myself and my patterning and my conditioning that I've not actually taken responsibility for, and was in my victim, was full scarcity mindset, really limited what I believed or what I knew was possible based on my past and the ways that I had lived and worked. And it's just been this, dare I say, it's nearly 3-year journey of discovery and leaning in even when you're not ready, leaning in even when you have no freaking idea what you're doing, leaning in when you don't know if it's going to be serving anyone, like just getting so curious about yourself and about the ways that you want to live and be and breathe and serve in the world. And then just witnessing like the magic begin to unfold because you start to make soul-aligned decisions. And they're literally things that you wouldn't have even thought of. Like, it's just the universe just kind of delivers it and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Yes, I'll say yes to that. And everything continues to evolve and expand as you raise your frequency and become more in alignment with who you are. You attract more and more people. I mostly work with women, actually. I solely work with women who are just totally on your wavelength. And that has been so enriching for me and so pivotal because it's allowed me to continue on this journey of discovering who the hell I am and what I'm here for, and doing it even when you're not ready, and giving women the permission slip to go, you know what, none of us are ready. But the fact that you're here having this conversation with yourself means that you're ready. Yeah, you wouldn't be here deliberating this, whatever it might be, whether it's your work or a relationship or family planning or investing in a business or working with Jess or myself. Like, you wouldn't be here if you weren't ready for it. And it's that classic case of the universe, feather, brick, truck. It's like, hey, what do we need to do for you to actually see what's here and what's available for you, and actually trust that you're here and you've been brought to this for a really, really beautiful reason, which you might not know yet, but just keep trusting your body and that whatever you're feeling, those soul nudges, I call them, when you're being pulled towards something, trusting the soul nudge, trusting the feeling in your body, particularly as a woman, trusting that so deeply over the logical mind and taking action from there, because that is absolutely where the magic is.
And I have so much to ask you on this topic, because I know that you have so much value to share on knowing what to trust and how to make decisions. Because I always witness you go, like, whenever there's a decision to be made, especially really tough ones, I've witnessed you make some really, really tough decisions in the last couple of years that have been literally life-changing. And we always talk about your intuition and how you listen to your body and your intuition, but I know you weren't always there and you weren't always in that trust. It's been a real beautiful journey for you to get to that place of trust and actually, know thyself and knowing what your yes is and what your no is. So can you speak into a little bit of how did you actually get to that place for the woman going, I know that I do have the answer inside of me. I know that I can make these decisions, but I don't know how, or I don't know how to listen to myself. Like, how did you get there? What would you say to them?
It's the answer already. It's whether or not you're prepared to take action on the answer. I feel like a lot of us, we busy ourselves, or we create busyness and energetic noise, literal and energetic noise, clutter in our lives in order to actually numb out that intuitive voice or numb out that intuitive guidance. And so it's again about getting really discerning around, what am I here for? What's the vision? Is this serving the vision, or is this just a bloody distraction that might be serving someone else's vision, or might be keeping someone that I love, really happy and content with the decisions that I'm making? Or is it actually something, is it something that I need to do in order to expand into that next phase of growth and evolution? Your body always knows the answer, always. And we are the ones that ignore it, or just it's a little bit too hard today, so let's not go there today. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe in 3 years' time. The answer is always there. And sometimes, the radical action isn't about, a full cord cutting. Sometimes it's actually about, hey, I need to have a conversation with someone. I need to have this really difficult conversation. It could go either way. And I've got to be prepared for that. I've actually got to be so prepared for that, because this is my truth. This is where I'm going. And anything that's not in alignment with that, I need to give permission for it to fall away. And trust that new things will flow in. And that's the hard part, because that's living in full surrender. That's living in abundance, right? We can't be in a state of expansion and contraction at the same time. So it's in every moment. I also like to refer to it as like choosing love over fear in every moment. We can't be in a phase of we can't be in a state of both. So it's cool. Okay, what would love choose in this moment? Without all the story, without the narrative, just in this isolated moment, if I was to be in the full, pure frequency of love, what would I choose? And then you ask yourself the fear question. If I was to be in a state of fear and contraction, what would I choose? And then it's about, okay, cool. Well, if I choose the love, what's the best thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? If I choose the fear, what's the best thing that could happen? And what's the worst thing that could happen? So it's this beautiful combination of actually asking your body and then allowing your mind to also be involved in the conversation, because we do live in a 3D world. And trusting yourself to take the aligned action from there. Even if you don't know the outcome, even if you don't know how it's all going to play out, just trust. Because if you're constantly in this state of fear, of worrying about the worst thing that could happen, that's just going to steamroll and expand. Like, we're only here once. We've only got this one beautiful life. So let's keep choosing love over the fear and just see what happens.
That is so beautiful. And what a beautiful framework to work off, to make those decisions and to really check in with your body and what feels good and natural to you. That's such great advice. I also want to ask about people pleasing. And because when you was talking about coming from a place of love, I was thinking, but for many of us that have done a bit of work on people pleasing and boundaries, like we would be able to come from a space of love and include ourselves in that, including loving ourselves and actually putting ourselves first. But I know for a lot of people, especially women, they're still in a little bit of that obligation for pleasing others and that obligation for putting other people's needs first, including family and partners, which can then lead to staying in relationships that are not serving you, or allowing family to treat you in a way that you wouldn't actually be, it wouldn't be acceptable to be treated that way if you really were loving yourself and putting yourself first. So how have you also worked on boundaries and obligation and people pleasing in your journey as well?
This is such a great question. And even as you're describing it, I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I know that I have.
I know you have too.
I know that I have, and I've had to in order to keep moving forward, in order to continue to expand. And I think it comes down to knowing what your vision is. That's the hardest thing, I think, for a lot of people, because sometimes we just don't know. I didn't know what my vision was 3 years ago. I had no bloody idea. I didn't even know who I was, let alone my vision. what the fuck's a vision? You know? So it's getting okay with the fact that not everybody is going to be in alignment with what you're a stand for. Not everybody cares about what you care about. Not everybody wants to live their life the way that you live your life. And you need to be okay with that. Just be like, you do you, boo. I'm going to be over here, do me, and you do you. Like, go for it. And there has been a process of disassociation or reaffirming boundaries and what I'm available for, or what conversations I'm available for, what opinions I'm available for, particularly within my inner circle prior to doing all of this work, because it's confronting for people because they're like, oh my God, are you like not the person you once were? Have you like been abducted by aliens? Like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? Please tell me that you're okay. And it's like, yeah, actually, I'm great. I'm like so good. And you have to be okay with saying no and disappointing people. You have to be okay with potentially losing people. In a way, they're kind of like dying. They're dying a death of what once, a relationship that once was, and it's going to enter in a new form, the way that you relate with particular people or people at all, whether or not you relate with them on the daily. I've had rapid, huge shifts over the last couple of years where I was in a long-term relationship and that had to end because it was no longer serving me or my vision or what I wanted to create. There was this huge misalignment in values. So even though there was love there and respect there and care there, it was like, we actually can't move forward with this because there is a fundamental kink in our hose that we're not willing to come together on. No matter how hard we try, we just can't kind of be at peace with one another in our respective truths. And in order for that to honor that, there needed to be a separation. There needed to be a massive goodbye, a huge release of a person and an energy and security that had been in my life for nearly 7 years. And at a really pivotal time in my life as a woman, in my mid-30s, I would like to have a family at some point with somebody else who wants to have a family. It was really scary. But sometimes you have to choose the hard thing to like know that the really good, juicy thing's coming, even when you can't see it. It's like, I just know that this is going to happen for me. Absolutely not a doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind, because I am so in attunement with what I'm available for and what I'm here to create. And I just trust that the person or the persons that are in my life and in my future that are meant to flow in will.
And that is the decision that I was thinking about when I asked you the question of how do you make a decision and actually act on it when you know in your body. And I think a lot of people know in their body when a relationship has actually come to an end. But you're so right in saying it's one thing to know, it's another thing to actually take action on it, because that takes a lot of courage and it's a really brave action to do. To potentially really let someone down or feel like you're letting yourself down, or there's so many different there's so many different facets to it to make those hard decisions. But ultimately, you actually need to make space. You need to let go of some things to make space for what you want. And that is an area I think a lot of people get stuck on, is they want to hang on to a plan B, or they want to hang on to something that they're so comfortable with, but they're not actually allowing or creating space for what they actually truly want.
And hedging your bets doesn't work. If you're in an energy of like, oh yeah, I'll just like be half in and then half in over here. Like, it doesn't actually work. It doesn't serve anyone. Like, it just kind of means you're just sort of floating around in like vanilla land of nothingness because you're not actually prepared to claim what you want and deserve. And if you're not prepared to do that, then it's not going to be delivered to you. As you said, there's no space for it. And even when you were just saying that, like, if I'm really honest with myself, and now I know what I know about my body and the work that I've done in terms of, feminine embodiment practices and just becoming in attunement with this beautiful vessel I have, and also connecting to my feminine energy. If I'm really honest with myself, my body knew years before, years and years and years before. But I didn't have the courage or the self-worth to step away from a good thing. It was a good thing. It wasn't a great thing, but I didn't have the courage to step away from it, even though my body was like, girl, this ain't for you. Like, all the signs are here. So many signs are here. But I'll just keep busying myself so that I don't actually hear them or listen to them or feel them. The body always knows.
Yeah. If you give it the space and the time to actually listen to it. Yeah, it's like in Untamed when Glennon Doyle talks about being in the cupboard under the stairs and actually just closing your eyes and just listening, because you already know. But if you don't give yourself that space and time, then, like you said before, there's lots of distractions that can be the noise that gets in the way. Intentionally, a lot of people do that intentionally so that they don't have to face the truth. Yeah.
100%. And that is literally my favorite analysis from that book. I love that you've worked, because, it's such a beautiful metaphor. Like, where do you need to go to be in your cupboard to actually hear your truth? Like, put the phones away, put everything away. Where do you need to go? Maybe it's the car, maybe it's the shower, maybe it's in nature. Where do you need to go? What do you need to do to give yourself the space to connect with your body? Nature's beautiful for this, because Mother Nature is inherently feminine, so to actually be a woman and connect with the frequency of the feminine, like with your feet and your hands, like touching the earth, is so powerful. And this is something that in my work I'm so passionate about, because we live in a world of women who are just kind of walking around like grey, closed off, stressed, blinkers on, sick, anxiety, depression, health issues, reproductive issues, infertility issues. There's so much to unpack here. And I'm no doctor or expert, but I'm just a woman in the world who loves women and loves witnessing women and loves working with women to actually step into their full feminine power. And over the last couple of years, these are the things that I've just witnessed. And I've also witnessed them within myself. I had chronic endometriosis, which was removed last year. I still suffer with adenomyosis. These are conditions that are really prominent in women. And I mention them, in my message, in my social media, because I probably had these for 20 years and had, again, been numbing with pharmaceuticals, had been numbing with birth control, had been numbing with all of the things, so that I didn't actually have to face the root cause, which was stress. Stress producing oxidative stress in my body. Potentially being in partnership with somebody that wasn't actually, my energetic match. So again, more stress created in the body, in your reproductive organs, depending on how woo-woo you are or how spiritual you are and how deep you want to go with this stuff. Like, it's incredibly eye-opening when you start to look down the lens of Chinese medicine and the way all of the meridians in the body are connected, and it's so eye-opening. And again, like, the body's just giving you information. It's just like, okay, cool. There's some sickness here. There's some illness here. Like, what do we need to do to actually address it and remove it? what is the root cause? So I feel like by becoming more aware with our bodies and connecting with our feminine energy, and by eliminating the noise and the clutter on every level, this is actually how you get to find who you are without all of the labels. Just who am I as a woman? What is my truth? What am I passionate about? What am I here to provide and serve and gift to the world? What is my joy? What is my dharma? What is this all for? And again, we just keep coming back to spaciousness, creativity and spaciousness. That's what the feminine needs to flourish.
Before we go on, I want to ask you a super powerful question. What would it mean to you to make decisions based on your soul rather than your bank balance? Freedom to me means having true autonomy and choice in your life to live based off your values and soul's desires, rather than what you can purely afford for you and your family or what your job requires of you. This is why I've been empowering women for the past almost 5 years to earn more with pleasure, earning your true worth without the insane hustle and with actually having choice in your life. It is so much more about how you earn rather than what you earn. If you'd like to learn more about how I mentor women to earn a time-leveraged income online, selling conscious, health-based products and learning the skills of personal branding and attraction marketing, both very sexy skills to have, then click on the link in the show notes or DM me the word info on Instagram so we can have a proper chat. I love having one-on-one convos with you savvy queens and showing you how this kind of income and our community can help you truly live wildly empowered. Big love, back to the episode. Let's talk through that, how you found your truth and your vision and how you became so comfortable in sharing it. Because anyone that follows you, and your Instagram is in the show notes, so go and check out Rosie's Instagram. Anyone that follows you will feel how much you don't give a fuck about whether someone likes you or not. You're not here to people please. You're actually here to speak to the one woman who your message is for. And you're so comfortable in yourself and your body and who you are. And, you know, there's lots of beautiful body shots on your page because you're so connected with that. And I do want to talk to that actually, on how you really help women to connect to their body as well. But how did you get there? Let's talk through how you got there, of showing up in your real raw truth and actually just not caring if people accept it or not. You're here for one person and one person only.
Gosh, it's really been a journey, hasn't it? It's so funny because I don't even I see my body as art. Literally see my body as art. And, you know, I am a creative. I, you know, am an actor. I was a performer. That was a big part of my life for a very long time. And I've always had a fascination with the female form. You know, if you come to my house, not the house that I'm in right now, but I've got all this art, and so much of it is original art of the feminine form, of the female body. And like, oh, wow, like you do actually, I've always had this kind of subconscious appreciation for it and love for it, even though I am a heterosexual woman, you know, in terms of my sexual preference, I'm very much interested in men. But there's something about an inquiry into your womanness or into the body and into your life force, your sexual energy, that I think I've always been drawn to. And I've only become aware of it, you know, I became aware of it about 2 years ago, you know, sort of 6 months into my online business journey, done a lot of personal development work, had literally locked myself in an office for 6 months. I did all of the things and was you know, all in my head with all of the trainings and all of the ideas. And then I was like, right, enough of that. You've just got to push it off to the side. And this word dropped in, and it was embodiment. This is 2 years ago. And I was at a point in my journey where I was still a little bit conscious about what I put online and who was watching. And and also very aware that, if you're quite expressed and you're quite, you're not wearing a lot of clothing, it can attract an audience that you don't necessarily want. My audience is women. So I remove people off my socials all of the time. For me, it's not about how many followers I have. It's about what's the energy of the people that are on here. And so I set up a Facebook group. And the Facebook group is called Embodied Femme. And it still exists today. So if you would like to jump on in there, then please do. And it's like I had the vision of what that space would represent, like intuitively without really knowing what it was. But I was like, I've just got to create this group. And the words Embodied Femme dropped in. I ended up trademarking it, being like, I don't even know what I'm going to use this for, but I just really love it and I don't want anybody else to have it. So I'm going to, make it my own and create this really safe and sacred space where I can show up and express and feel safe. Because if we don't feel safe as women, we're not going to open and express, right? We're like beautiful flowers that we need to feel safe in order to open. And I began running like moon cycle workshops and getting different experts in there. And I was doing that kind of monthly for about 6 to 9 months. And it was just a really beautiful place of exploration and of sharing. And it was very much like my thing. And then around the 9-month mark, I actually separated from my partner. And I shared this very impromptu live, like literally I think like the day after, 2 days after. And after that, the group kind of went quiet because I was like, it was almost like once that part of me died, I felt like I could just share openly and vulnerably like to anyone. I didn't need to be in this really safe container anymore. It's like the gatekeepers had like lifted because literally all I had to worry about was myself. I didn't have to worry about somebody else's reputation. Didn't have to worry about their friends and family. I didn't have to worry about, if Rosie's sharing this, what that then means to them. It was literally just like such a liberation. And so I think it was a real gradual process of having like a private group and then just going like, actually, I'm so comfortable sharing this online. And my preferred platform is Instagram. I love it. And I love the women that I connect with on there. And then it just became this process of saying yes to opportunities where I could be in circle with women, in terms of body celebrations that were photographed. Online spaces, offline spaces. It literally just became around just exploring like, why does my body feel like dead when I'm this beautiful mid-30s woman that I know, has so much in here, but where's it all gone? And how do I connect with it again? And so I started working with Jenny Mears at the Fembodiment Institute in Melbourne. And that was sort of the journey of learning more about it, and then went into, a full year of study, which I completed last year. Completed the Fembodiment method, started hosting retreats for women. I've just hosted one in Byron Bay. I've got another one, a 5-day women's immersion coming up in October, and I've only got a handful of spots left for it. It's literally pre-sold out before even advertising it, because the women in my circle witness the other women who come on these retreats, these full immersions, and just go, oh my gosh, like you can literally, before your eyes, see the transformation. And this is how pivotal and powerful this work is. And there are times where I go, I'm not even really doing anything. I'm literally just holding a space and giving permission for this exploration, which was what was done for me. And that's what's so powerful as well. Like we have what we need inside of us. We have it. It's here. It's already here. And your divine essence is different to mine, and it's different to the woman walking down the street, and it's different to the women that I work with online, and it's different to the women who show up in my immersions. And by creating a space that allows a woman to actually tap into and discover what that is for her is so sacred and so powerful.
So The next question that on the offshoot of that, because that was just so powerful and there was so much wisdom, embodied wisdom in that, and this is why I think this topic is just so beautiful to discuss with you, because everything that you're sharing is so embodied. Like, you have come to this place because of the experiences that you've had. It's not book knowledge. It's not, you learning a concept and putting it into practice. It's like you actually having these real life experiences and you doing the do to get to where you are. And I think that comes across so strongly in your brand and in your content. And it's why it makes such a massive impact to other women. And something I wanted to ask about is, how do you, because I'm sure that other people that land on your beautiful Instagram would want to know the same. How do you know what to say? Like, how do you get the download of what your truth is in a moment? Like, how do you know, or how do you feel into what you want to share in any given moment?
I love this question because I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves to create and put things out into the world. And as you mentioned, I'm a manifesting generator. So literally stuff just comes to me. It just drops in. And that's when I'm like, okay, let's write this down. Like, I just free journal. It's all in my phone. I'm not a big pen to paper person. Literally just pull out my notes and I literally just channel it into my phone. And it's usually written. If it's spoken, then it's literally just like videoing myself speaking the message, no matter where I am, what I look like. If my hair's dirty, I'm not wearing makeup. If I'm half naked on the beach, like, doesn't matter. And for me, it's so much more important to be in the energy of, like, the authentic energy of whatever message is coming through than worrying about the artifice of it, because it will always retain the energy in which it's created. It's the same in photographs. It's why, for me, doing an impromptu shoot with someone will always feel so much better than, spending hours and hours in a hair and makeup chair, covering up kind of, what's already there. And it's funny, like, the moments where I have done that, which actually isn't that often, I kind of look at the photos and I'm like, well, I can't really see me. Like, cover it up. Like, I like doing my own hair and my own makeup because it's just more natural. And there's also not the expectation that this needs to be something in particular, that it's really honoring the here and the now and allowing yourself to express whatever that is in the here and now, rather than worrying about the end result or it looking a certain way or it being received in a certain way. That is the art of expression and creating something that will exist in another form, whether it be a photograph or a video or prose. Like, that is, for me, I think, how I've been able to bring the artist within me into the personal brand and business space, because it just feels really like, oh, well, like, this is just who I am. And because I'm so consistent in sharing, and I share in a variety of different ways, I don't follow a formula, I don't follow trends or anything. Like, I just do what feels good. And if it's not feeling good, put the phone away, like, go and do something that actually lights you the hell up. Go and create some space, go down to the beach, go out in nature, go for a walk, go for a run, stretch, put some music on, move your body, like, touch your body, have a shower, give yourself a massage, like, do things that feel good and that activate you and remind you who you are. I say this to the women I work with all of the time. Remember who you are. Just remember who you are. Share that. Be that. Because if you're not being that, it's very hard to share that, because it's going to come across as inauthentic. And, that can be a journey as well. When I first started doing this, it felt clunky and I was kind of still figuring it out. And you kind of got to be okay with it being like, sometimes a bit cringy. Like, oh, that was a bit cringy. I get the memories that pop up, 2 years ago, and you're like, oh my God, why was I sharing that? Like, how is that valuable to anyone, right? Yeah, but it's just part of the journey. And for me, I really have disassociated the idea that my body, in terms of sharing what I share, like, I'm so okay with the imperfectness of it. I'm so okay with my endo scars. I'm so okay with my tummy rolls. I'm so okay with the cellulite on my thighs. Like, I'm actually so okay with that because that's real. And I'm also okay with the fact that I'm a beautiful woman, and if we don't see ourselves as beautiful, then how can we expect anybody else to? And if we don't share the parts of us that, it's the other thing, like, we're so conditioned to seeing like cookie cutter influencer airbrushed images. And it's like, well, actually, what if we can show something different? And then that's actually the permission slip for somebody else, not necessarily to share it on social media, that might not feel comfortable or safe for them. Totally cool. But actually give them the permission to be more expressive in their body and in their form as a woman in their life with themselves. Give them permission to touch themselves. Give them permission to allow someone else to touch them in the way that they asked to be touched. So what I feel like what this does is it creates this conversation that's so much bigger than the image or the prose or the content itself. It's literally, together, we are changing the way that women accept themselves and accept other women in a public forum. What is acceptable? What is comfortable? And even this idea of like, I just really feel like I share what I share from my heart. Like, I'm really not sharing from a place of ego or needing likes or needing a validation. It's like just sharing stuff that's like come through from somewhere. And this is my heart and I'm sharing it. And I know that if I'm sharing my heart, somebody else will see their heart within it. And it's so interesting for me now because I don't see the images and what I share as being highly sexualized. Whereas someone might look at it and go, oh my God, there's like a pretty much naked woman on my screen. Like, whoa, it's kind of full on. She must like really love herself. And there's a judgment around that. And, I have my moments, I have my days, I'm not saying that I'm fully in full self-acceptance at all times, but I'm comfortable enough to share myself in the journey because I know that that gives another woman the permission to do the same.
And just like that journey to your truth and your fullest self-expression and trusting yourself and knowing who you are, that has been a gradual journey. So a reminder to everyone when they see Rosie's beautiful Instagram that she didn't get there overnight. And, all of this work that you've done, Rosie, is so admirable because so many people won't go there and so many people just don't feel worthy enough of going there. So it's been a beautiful journey that you've been on, and also leads me to ask about the business that you run, because that has also been a really long journey and you're so incredibly successful, having such an incredible impact and creating a huge amount of abundance now. And also you have worked so hard and done so much work on yourself to get to where you are today. So let's talk through that, because that is one thing that I really, really love highlighting on this podcast is not just the success and the story of the success and all of the glory that comes along with that, but the journey and what it actually took to get there. So let's take a trip down memory lane to like when you started and what inspired you to start, which you've covered a little bit, and where you are now and what had to happen in those 3 years for you to get to a point of actually having an online business that's a 6-figure online business. You literally are traveling the country pretty much right now in the most incredible freedom lifestyle way. What had to happen to get you there?
How much time we got? What had to happen? I had to let go of absolutely everything that got in the way of serving the higher vision. And I had to be okay with being the black sheep. I had to be okay with disappointing people. I had to be okay with making some people feel uncomfortable. I had to be okay with just being myself. And that is where people stumble. What we do is actually so simple. Like, it's the simplest of simple, simple, simple dimple. And we as humans complicate it because we care more about other people's opinions than we do about showing women a new way to be, to earn, to live in the world abundantly. You know, these models and these methods have been around for years, but it's like actually choosing the right model, the right financial model that actually allows you to fully embody who you are unapologetically. That is so liberating when you give yourself the permission to fully embody it, to fully believe that you're worthy of it, to fully believe that who you are as a human is enough. That the downloads that come to you in the shower or while you're driving or while you're waiting for kids at school pickup, that they're worthy of being shared. They're worthy of having a stage. Storytelling is the oldest art form. It connects us all. And somewhere along the line, we have been told that our story isn't good enough to share. Your story is enough. Your story gives another person the permission to really own theirs and then feel comfortable to share it. So it's been a journey, a day-by-day journey and commitment. Even when I didn't have the results, even when things were hard, it's like, again, just trusting that knowing of like, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep going because you're working toward a freedom within yourself. And when you think that, like, that is like the sweetest spot where you go, how is this my life now? I feel so free. I feel so light. Oof. Because you have the abundance to support you, right? As we say with money, it's not about the money itself. It's about, what does that money represent? What does that money allow me to do? How does it allow me to impact? How does it allow me to serve? Not only yourself, but the people in your immediate life and then the wider community. It's such a beautiful currency and energy that we get to circulate. And in order to create a lot of impact, you actually need a lot of money. And you've got to be so okay with receiving it, with circulating it, letting it go, reinvesting it, losing it. You're like, you know what? It's just all part of the circulation. And there's medicine in all of it, right? Because it's never about the money itself. It's always about our relationship to it. So for anyone that's watching on and seeing, me 3 years down the line, remember that, you starting this journey, it's going to look very different to mine right now because I'm 3 years down. I'm actually 36 years down, let's how far back do we want to go? Because everything that we are, everything that we've done, has all contributed to who you are and who you be and how you show up in the world right now. Trust that you're enough and just remember who you are.
Yeah, there's so much medicine in that. And I think also having witnessed you on this journey for so long, something that I really admire in you and have seen so much along the way is just how rock solid your vision and your long-term vision is. I feel like a lot of people get into business, any form of business, and have a lot of excitement around short-term success. And short-term success can happen, obviously, and it's great when it does. But for you, there were so many mountains you had to climb and so many phone conversations we had where you were going through so many challenges, so many tough situations and tough conversations to have. And you were actually willing to have them. And you were willing to, climb those mountains because you saw the long-term vision that you had and you weren't willing to compromise on it. And that's something that I see in a lot of people with success. And it's something I want to highlight here is actually just staying the course. As hard as it is, just staying the freaking course. It takes so much resilience and it takes a lot of self-boundaries and making tough decisions and, walking through fire to be there sometimes. But the long-term benefit is so worth it. And the life that you live now and being able to, like you've rented out your apartment, you're traveling, you've been in Byron, you've been in Sydney, you've been staying in all these beautiful places, like with your cats, just living the life, and being in so much joy. As I said before, it's not often that you hear joy and six-figure business in the same sentence because so many people only get there from so much hustle. And yes, it takes resilience, but also when you have the long-term vision of knowing exactly what you want to create and how you want it to feel, which is what I've seen you always have such clarity on, that's when you know it's inevitable. Before we wrap things up, I'd love to just make it really clear for everyone listening, how can they work with you if they want to, look at any of your retreats or how you mentor women in online business? What is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is via Instagram at Rosie Lockhart. Slide into my DMs and let's have a chat. I have no cookie cutter approach to my work. And as you know, I work online. I also do host women's immersions a couple of times a year. However, my primary business is online. And it really always starts with a conversation around who you are and what you're looking for and whether what I do can serve you. So please do get in touch. I absolutely love having these conversations and coming from a place of, real service and being like, cool, like, let's have a chat. So definitely Instagram is the best way to reach me.
Perfect. And final question, which I love to ask all of my guests. If you could go back in time and ask your 21-year-old self, if you could go back in time and give your 21-year-old self any piece of advice, you could just give her a hug and just tell her something that she really needed to hear, what would that be? Before we wrap up this episode, I want to ask you a question. Do you remember how you discovered this podcast? Was it a friend's suggestion or an Instagram story, maybe a post? Somehow you found it and I'm hoping you're getting a lot of value from it. I need your help now to pay it forward so that other women can feel seen, heard, nourished, and more than anything, empowered from these conversations too. Big love, back to the episode.
Listen to your body. Trust her. She knows things.
Goosebumps. That's so beautiful.
Let's put that on a t-shirt.
Yes. Can we? And then can we disseminate these t-shirts to every single, I think from 11 till 21-year-old girl out there?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. That is beautiful. Listen to your body and trust her. So gorgeous. Thank you so much. So much beautiful wisdom in that whole conversation. If you took any form of value from this podcast, please feel free to forward it to another gorgeous woman that you feel would benefit. Feel free to screenshot it, share it to your stories, and tag Rosie and myself. And get in touch. If there's anything that really did speak to you, then get in touch with Rosie. It's so beautiful to hear from women that, you know, she's here to serve and here to really share her wisdom with you. And yeah, we really appreciate you being on and hope that you were just absolutely touched by the whole discussion that we've just had, because we really had you in mind when we were discussing what topic we wanted to cover today. So thank you so much for joining us.